Okay, so there'll be no sales meeting next Tuesday or whatever. We'll take off that break of Thanksgiving, but the next one will be December 3rd, and it'll be back here or whatever. So look forward to that one. Reminder that the Gracious deadline is today. If you want to sign up to be in the next edition of the Gracious magazine, it's our in-house magazine, which is, you don't have to be. It's $500 for a page or $300 for a half page. Everyone will have their picture in it. Everyone will be able to use the magazine. It'll be a variety, but if you want an entire page that you can use as a listing presentation, then sign up with Eric by the end of the day today. We will immediately start working on the drafts, and Kieran will be getting with you. If you're interested in any sort of article or editorial, or you think we ought to focus on something, it'll be less about the heights for sure, so I'm sure there'll be more emphasis on Montrose, on Westview, Braes Heights, Westbury, Willow Bend, Memorial. There'll be a little bit about the heights at Oak Forest. We're going to try and use this magazine to broaden our horizon out of there. We sent out an email. They gave me 10 spots at this MCE training, which is Thursday and Friday. The class normally costs $49. Tied to the class, they're providing a breakfast and they're providing a lunch for the 2 days. Almost everyone that goes is going to win some stuff. Mini iPads, money, gift certificates. I mean, they're rigging it so that the Boulevard Realty people are going to win some stuff. I'm just letting you know. So if you need any MCE class, let us know. And if you sign up, you got to go, because there were limited spots to this deal. I think only 3 people have signed up. They gave me 10 of these spots. I think it's 8 to 5, Thursday and Friday.
What's the topic?
The topics are kind of ethics are one, identity theft, social media, 2 hours of how to use LinkedIn to broaden your business deals. Let's see what else there was. Identity theft. I didn't know what some of this stuff was. Credit, tips to improve your credit score, how to understand credit scores and credit reports or whatever. I think there's an hour on that. Yeah, credit reports, wide variety. A little bit of communication, I think, in there. So ethics, legal, social media, LinkedIn, credit, that sort of thing. 2 hours. So if you're interested, sign up here. Let me know about that. This is the mail out, the postcard. I went to 3,400 of our clients for life. We automatically mailed it, mailed out. They mailed out today.
They're going this morning.
They're going out today, so they should hit the mail in a few days. The bulk mail stuff's not as immediate as first class or whatever, but it's just a little, notice about the Kirby office. Had a nice little message about our new office, or call to speak to one of our experienced realtors. We're not just showing homes, we're sharing resources, important information, trends, suggestions, fresh ideas. This is how we can help you. I mean, that's kind of the message we're trying to send to the post client, that we're the resource after the sale sort of thing. So this one will go out. The next one will immediately follow. We'll work on it this week, probably go out next week, which is just kind of a thankful message. It's a holiday greeting and a thankful message. And then we'll get one right after the first of the year, thanking them again one more time for 2013, recognizing the success of 2013, and inviting them to our toast to the new year at the end of January. So 3 little direct mail pieces all to the clients for life there. We printed some extra ones, which will be on the island here in a couple of days if you just want to take a few extra and do something else with it. Jim Ford got Kobe fired. No, just kidding. Kobe is taking a leave of absence. He had an opportunity in another job that it paid significantly higher. He's going to try it and see if it works. It's a 3-month kind of sabbatical to see if that works. We'll reevaluate in January or whatever. So he's not going to be here definitely for November and December.
Well, I'm concerned about that because who's going to make the cookies?
I know. We're getting shallow here, but Eric can take back the cookies. I want oatmeal raisin and less chocolate
Yes,
chip.
I agree.
Just
add that to your list, Eric.
They will Friday, we're tying in with the Heights Association and having a food drive. It's a canned food drive. It's going to be a barrel of food for the food bank. And we're going to keep that carton collecting food for those less fortunate than us until December 9th or whatever, which will be moved over to the fire station. Then they'll use that food for the Rotary Club, and then they'll distribute all the food. So you'll be seeing this little food barrel, and we'll send out another email information about it very shortly. I wanted to just point out through the Heights Association this little ornament. If you sold a little house in the Heights and you just want a little gift, these little ornaments, this is a special photograph of the Heights. These little ornaments are available like at Jubilee, Buchanan's, Davis Hardware. I think they were $12. There were only 325 of these produced or whatever, but if you're looking for a little gift, these will sell out by the holiday home tour. So if you're interested in any, you probably ought to get one if you're just looking for a little gift to give your clients or something. I thought it was a nice little gift for $12. Just wrap it in something, put it right there, and be done with it. Nothing else much going on with the calendar. Just keep in mind Thanksgiving is coming up. The office will close. I'm sure we'll close early on Wednesday. It just kind of depends on the level of stress with the closing. We won't be open on Thursday, and there'll be very limited staff Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's just not a lot going on from the office standpoint. We will be open, but it'll be very limited during that time. Okay. We're moving right into our theme today. Okay, so you're going to leave here with a better understanding of taxes, tax prorations, tax recalculation, and tax bills. So this is our theme here for the day. And if I get too complicated, just raise a hand and we're going to start over here. But I want you to have a thorough understanding of taxes in general. Taxes are assessed in arrears, which means they go backwards from the period effective January 1. So for tax purposes, for property tax purposes, all that matters is what was there, and what was the value, and what was the situation on January 1. That's important because if you have a closing and you sell a house on December 27th, they would own it and they would qualify for homestead exemption into the following year. But if you bought it on January 2nd, you would not qualify until after you own the house the following year on January 1. So values are always going to be based on January 1, but we're not often determining that value until the middle of the summer or whatever. So it gets a little complicated. But in the grand scheme of taxes, from January 1 until April 30th, there's the period that you qualify for whatever exemptions that you might have, and you file for your exemption. Homestead being the largest one of those deals, and we're going to have another whole class just on homestead exemptions, but I don't want to get bogged down here. But if you have disability or over 65 or any other form of exemption, you would apply during the period April 1 to April 30th. You can't apply on December 31st, and it won't do any good to mail it in May 2nd. They purge the files. Anything that they had before January 1, they throw away, and they only focus what they get in the mail or in person from January 1 until April 30th. Now, if you had homestead exemption for the previous year and you didn't do anything, then you're going to automatically receive it the next year. If you moved, though, changed your address, changed your mailing address, changed your driver's license, changed your voter identification, it flags them that you might not be living there anymore and you might not qualify for those same exemptions. So if you've changed your mailing address to your office, it could throw them for a loop and they would deny your homestead exemption and you'd have to go check it or reapply again for that period. It doesn't mean that you don't qualify, but it would be a flag to them. Once they get that information, they're out doing their assessments. They hire thousands of part-time employees, and they walk down the streets and they go and do an assessment. Did you get a new garage or not? Did you add a second-story addition? Did you repaint? Did you replace your rotten wood? Their incentive is to increase the amount of value on the tax records, because it disperses the tax burden more equitably based on the information. So if you pull a permit and you get a swimming pool, you're probably going to get an increase of your taxes or your taxable value based on your improvement. If you didn't pull a permit and you still replaced your garage door, they might notice that and they could flag you for an increase. So they're verifying what information they have. They're short-staffed, and but they're definitely checking new home sales. They subscribe to the MLS, or they're checking the permits. They've got a list of all the permits that happened in the previous year, and they're going to go and verify that information first to make the adjustment. All things being equal, the value could go up 30%, but your taxable value could only go up by, your appraised value, taxable value could only go up by 10%. So the appraised value could go up, this disparity. Here's it's worth $500,000. Last year you were at $300,000. They can only raise your taxable value by 10% or $330,000. That's why we end up with this great disparity, because often the values are rising exponentially greater than the 10%, and you can't keep up. So in River Oaks, you can see a house on the tax records for $1.5 million and for sale for $4.5 million. It's because they've been there 10 years and there was this large gap there. So they're assessing this value, and they're going to mail the homeowners sometime after April, probably in May, a situation. Here's your taxable value, and here's your homestead, here's your exemptions, and do you agree or disagree? And if you disagree, you have to go down and fight for the exemption or fight the value in June, July, or August. So the value, the floating value is over there moving all the time because people are trying to lower their values by going through a hearing at the Appraisal Review Board or something. While that's going on, we're in the middle of June, July, August over here. We're still selling houses January, February, March, April, May, June, July. And the title company tends to want to use the previous year's number, which, remember, is going to be January 1 of the year and a half before of the value, because that's the only certifiable number that they have. So it's a common situation in our industry to use an old number. So we try to instill along the way a protection for the buyer and seller. I'm just going to explain the whole process first, and we're going to come back to that. So June, July, and August, hearings going on, values floating around. We get near the end of that. About September, they prepare a roll or whatever, and they send it to the entities, and they say, based on this projection, with your old tax rate, here's how much money you would raise. HISD, City of Houston, Harris County, Houston Community College, any of those little mud districts. And then those entities, in late September and October, are going to decide how much money they need to support the next year. And they're going to start discussing the tax rate, because we don't know what the tax rate is going to be, because they don't know how much revenue they're going to raise yet. So we're not going to know the taxable rate until sometime in late October, generally. So what happens is, after the protest in October, the Harris County Appraisal District certifies the values. We're done with 99% of the protest over here, and we have a value set. And then the entities go and set their rates in late October for us to arrive at a tax bill. So we never get a tax bill before the 1st of November. We're just never going to get it, because see how long it takes them to get the projection, calculate the rate, print it in the newspaper, debate it at their entities, and then adopt a rate over here. So the rate, if the value goes up by a couple $2 billion in the city, then maybe the City of Houston wouldn't have to raise the rates. Perhaps it could go down, and they have gone down. It went down every year of Bill White's administration. It went down every year of the Parker administration. Okay, so we've reduced the tax rate because the values have gone up and they raised more money by not raising the rate. But when we're over here playing real estate, we don't know yet what to tell our clients what the taxes are going to be for the next year, because we didn't know the value and we didn't know the rate. But all that's happened now to the middle of November, and the tax bills are coming out now. The tax bills will come out right about now, and then people can pay their taxes from the time they get their bill. Historically, it would be from December 1 to January 31, and they don't become delinquent until February 1. So you can put it in the mail on January 31st, and if it's postmarked that date, then it's not going to be late. If you put it, if they get it postmarked February 1, you're going to be late, and they're going to assess you a penalty for paying late there. So That's how taxes work in general. So you can see it's fairly confusing when we're in real estate what number to use. So we're just guessing about half the time based on our experience. So the average house, when it was $450,000 one year, it's probably going to be $480 or $490 the next year or something. The rate's not going to be significantly different. We don't worry about it too much in the average deal. But the abnormal things to look for would be Aunt Edna died over here, and she had over 65 value, and she was paying taxes on $65, and we're going to sell that house for $450,000, and you represent the buyer. We know Edna's no longer with us over here. She died in 2012. We know, even though the tax records still say over 65 exemption, they're going to take that away when they figure it out, and they could assess the new buyer the value based on no exemption. So exemption change is a huge thing. Or the typical builder scenario, you got a David Weekley lot that was $20,000 on the tax record, and they sell a house for $450,000 in September, and their title company wants to use the certified number, the $20,000 from the year before, and we get to closing, and you show me your HUD, we're in a big fight over here because it's harder to get back $7,000 from David Weekley in December than you think. It's just not that easy. So,
Bill, the Aunt Edna deal, if she did pass away, and say it was frozen at 250, and then it's removed, it could literally double overnight, right?
absolutely, it's
Yeah,
triple.
you can benefit the rest of that year,
Absolutely.
but.
And they can go back a year later. They don't even have to catch you in 2013. They could catch you in 2014 and send you back a bill. And how would we ever find the estate of Edna if the kids were in Oklahoma City or Louisville, Kentucky, and we close and we use the little bitty number, and your client gets stuck with a $6,000 or $7,000 tax bill, which it can be significantly more than that, happens all the time. The death, over 65 exemption, moving, that happens all the time, and the problem of townhouse development, you took a tract of land, we've replatted, we're not going to really get that tax bill for a long period in the future because to replat, reassign a tax number, reassign a value, they're going to do the easy ones first. So from January until May, they're only going to work on the normal lot and blocks. They're not going to start working on this replat and all this sort of stuff until after these protests are over with because they're understaffed over there at Harris County Appraisal District also. So in the old days when we had a lot of permitting, the replat and assignment of taxable deals was often 2 years later than the actual plat, okay? Because we didn't have as many permits in 8, 9, 10, and 11, they caught back up again, but as we increase the number of permits and replats, they will get further and further behind.
So are you saying they can go back?
They can go back. We'll show you an example of they don't even assign a value or certify the numbers for the replats often until a year down the road.
So do you advise people then to say, okay, you're gonna get a tax bill, it's gonna be huge, so for the next 2 years, you need to be setting
Save
aside your
all
money?
the time, my
because it's
young
coming.
clients, and
It's coming.
absolutely, absolutely. Yes, Amy?
But like, what date do they go off? Like, say you pulled your permits on January, but it wasn't completed until November. Technically, while it's in construction, are you paying the
You have stages.
$400,000, or
No.
do they wait until after it's complete?
Whatever it was, January 1.
When
Yeah,
they pull
it-
the permit,
That's correct.
they'll use a completed.
They'll use an incomplete number.
Okay.
They can use whatever it was January 1. So if you pulled the permit on December 1st and you poured a foundation January 1 and we closed September for $400,000, they still might only use $60,000 for the value. And if they use 400, we protest and say, look, here's my permit. Here's where the city inspected it on January 2nd. I did not have a frame. I didn't have any value. I only had a slab. But they're pretty sophisticated. They got Google Maps too.
Yeah.
When I was finding my value And they claim my garage apartment was finished out, because I'm sure I pulled a permit for a finished one, but I didn't. Then I go and protest. They pull up the deal and said, okay, your apartment was not there, but you dropped a load of dirt.
They're lying.
And we're going to reassign another $5,000 for the dirt work that was in the photo on January 1. So literally for my house, what I've done, January 1, I get the newspaper, I hold it up, I take a little photo over here that says, here's January 1's newspaper, I'm standing in my garage apartment. It ain't finished out, it's just a garage. They still don't have it straight at 205 Balin if you just go over there and look, but it hadn't been worth missing.
You
But
should
all the
take the
time, we
mayor
just
up there
take
and
our little photo on January 1, where, Allegro, we used to do this, we'd go to the lot. I just sold a lot on 9th Street. My clients are building a custom house, but we're gonna get this damn thing demoed before December 31st, and we're gonna come take a photo with the newspaper on January 1 to show, and so if they assess us for $500,000 and $350 was the land and $150 was the house, January 2nd, we're gonna go over there and say, remove the improvement value of $150 because the improvement was no longer there, right? It's a way to inadvertently, this was not on the MLS, they have no idea what we paid. So we're gonna try and get the value back down to what was just the land value and remove the improvement.
What about when a house is just in a partial state, like maybe framing on January?
Happens all, yeah, you can just,
Stages.
the easiest way is to just get the permit, because there's, and so you could even we print out from the City of Houston, the permitting record or whatever, and it shows us what stage we're in, if you have the invoices.
But how will they assess the value of a partial completion?
Oh, yes, it's 10%, if the value's 400,000, it was 15% complete, just
Oh,
like a
okay,
bank would.
got it,
Just
okay.
like a bank draw would be.
Okay.
Mhm,
And then if Aunt Edna died on August 1st, let's say,
mhm.
then of 2013, the whole year is still based on January 1.
That's correct,
of
you still
$20,000.
qualify for that homestead
You get
exemption.
the benefit for that year, the remainder of that year.
Yes, yes, they do.
Poor Ann.
January 1, you qualify for that deal.
She just keeps dying.
Picking on.
Okay, so when you go to
Well,
your
wait, I have a
generic,
question. So
Uh-huh.
when you're talking about them coming back 2 years later, are you talking about them coming back?
in 2013, when they gave you the over 65 exemption, but Edna died in 2012.
Okay, but if Edna dies in 2013, you keep
Yes.
that tax rate.
Yes, yes, yes. The
Are you
taxable
saying that
value.
they sometimes don't catch up, like in 2014?
That's correct.
You still have the 65, they could go back and take it off.
If she died in 12,
Okay.
and they kept it, and the exemption was still there in 2013, and the people were trying to be underhanded and say, let's don't say anything, and everyone benefits because you're going to get the tax, it'll be less taxes for everyone. So the seller's always going to say that, right? The buyer's going to say, okay, well, it sounds good, I can pay less taxes if we just don't say anything about Edna dying.
Okay.
And you go and you use the deal, because it could still say it January through June or July, right? It could still say it, and it could be taken away after that.
Okay.
And then we go, and in 2014, they figure out, hell, Edna died in 12. We're gonna redo the taxes for 2013, even though we're in 2014, and send you back a bill because you didn't have qualified. You know you didn't qualify for that exemption. You can't file married joint filing if you're single over here at the IRS. If you did it for 10 years, so they go back and clutch you, they're gonna go back and, it's the same thing. If you don't qualify for it, you didn't qualify. Even if they gave it to you, if you don't qualify, they can go back and capture it. It happens all the time when we sell one of these churches, which is zero value, okay?
Oh,
And we go over here and everyone, I've had it happen to me. I've had Paul Goldberg screw my client out of $30,000 because I told him it wasn't going to work, and they go, oh, he'll pay us, he'll pay us. Well, they came back 2 years later and say, you didn't have a church there that year. We want the full taxes based on no exemptions for the value. And it was 2 years after the sale, and we never got a dime from the seller. Never got a dime. Because getting it back later is pretty difficult.
So
Yes,
just
Jim?
keep that in your house until the next.
That freezer, go
Refrigerator.
The title company.
Till January 1st.
What if she was
We
there on
get-
the first?
We get that burn.
Take a picture.
Well, sometimes you're penalized by a harmless mistake.
Put her ashes
I.e.,
on the.
probate.
on the fireplace.
somebody's Aunt Edna dies, you don't probate it for a year,
right?
and then you sell it, and then,
But if you know the over 65 exemption's there, and you know she's no longer the owner because she ain't with us
And the
anymore,
day
then
Right.
you should take, remove the
Right.
exemption and reapply the taxes without the exemption.
I know,
Okay,
but
so
I mean,
I
it
see you
does
have
happen.
this form in your
The
hand,
state's not
Bill,
entitled
so
to
can we jump to this form?
We're gonna
You're
jump to this
absolutely
form.
right.
Okay.
Do y'all have
Still
this
give
form?
it to you.
We do have this form.
And do you have this copy of this contract?
Yes.
I don't-
Nobody, okay. Eric, here's one.
Here, I got
No,
it.
we
You
got-
typically go to closing, and the title company does not want to be responsible for this thing. They do not want to take any responsibility. They'll just do whatever's decided upon by both parties. So, I want to be clear, what it says in the contract is that you don't have to use the certified numbers from last year when you know they're wrong. I mean, it says it specifically that we don't have to. When you know there's a material change, then you shouldn't use a bad number, okay? Even though it's certified and the new one's not certified here. So we can use any number that we want when we're at closing. The problem is, you don't want to fight the day of closing, okay? So the title company doesn't decide what number you're going to use. The parties decide what number you're going to use. The title company does not want to assume responsibility. Now at some point you got to pick a number. And if you just have StarTex Title in League City, who doesn't know what they're doing, they're probably just going to use last year's numbers. They're going to spit out some HUD over there, and if no one objects, we're just going to move right on down to closing. Okay? But you should know better. We should be better educated here. Okay? So, what the contract says is that the parties will agree to a number, and when we know it's materially different, we're going to change it to something that's more appropriate there. So it comes from the contract. It doesn't say anywhere that we have to use last year's number. We just have to mutually agree to a number. Okay? That's what it says in the contract. These tax proration agreements, this is just a generic one from Commonwealth. Every title company has their own over there. Says this is what we're doing. We're going to use a number. Last year's number, we made up a number, we estimated a number, and from this point forward, after closing, don't go back to the title company. We had nothing to do other than just divide the numbers the way someone told us to do, and here's how we divided them. You know, so if that lot's 20,000, we're selling a house for 400, it was partially complete, and I want to use 80,000 as the number with no exemptions and calculate a tax rate. Very reasonable to do that. I mean, we know it's going to be, we know it's not going to be 20, we know it's not going to be 400, and you just got to pick a number that seems reasonable along the way.
But are you talking about for the next year, because the year,
I'm talking
that
about the
year?
current year.
Well,
Taxes are paid
doesn't it
in
go
arrears.
back to January 1 of what the
Yes,
value is?
January 1, it was in the framing stage. See, the year before it was 20,000.
Yeah.
We're selling for 400, 18, you know,
So where
January
was
1,
it?
2012.
Where was it in January 1?
We're in the framing stage.
Okay.
Okay? So we just have to make up a number for what we think that's going to be. You literally just have to make up a number based on experience. There's hardly any other way to say it. And so they all have their own little assessment here, and it says, so when these bills come in, all the time people call the title company, and all the time the title company's going to say, call your agent. Because they don't want to be, they were just passing in the night, and they did what someone told them to do. Okay? It's between the parties, the buyer and the seller. And the title company is going to make us sign something like this because they do not want to be responsible for anything to do with the taxes. They
And
want
the
the
lender
buyer and
also.
seller.
Okay, so how can they provide a clear title?
Yeah,
Like
what?
for number 10, says, we are not responsible for this, you have to go back to the seller, and the seller says, screw you, I'm not paying the $30,000. Now there's no clear title, because the buyer says, I don't know that $30,000, I didn't know that house during that
They're going to
time frame.
assess a lien at the
So
taxing
they are,
authority.
so how could the title company actually say, not our fault, when they knew that there was a 65 exemption out there or whatever?
Because they hold the agent accountable.
Yeah, they just close.
So
whenever
in
they're
good
told to
faith,
close.
how could I possibly ask my buyer to sign this?
They will not close without it. So we just need to do a better job of estimating the taxes and educating the
Right,
people. I mean, before we get there. Thus, we have our form for the tax proration agreement because I want to have the battle before we're under contract. Because when the day before closing, I was in a fight and it was a builder or whatever, and we're in a huge fight, and what am I going to tell my client? You don't have to buy the house. Well, now we've waited a year and a half, and now we've got through the option, now we got through the appraisal, and we're going to fight over the taxes. if we didn't have this form signed, I didn't have any way to enforce the change. I can get my guy out of, I mean, if we just can't agree to the tax proration, contract's gonna end at some point, we're gonna move on down the road.
But that comes, if you set expectations in the very beginning.
That's right. So this form should be used anytime you're dealing with a new construction in the first 6 or 8 months out of the year, and anytime we know there's a replat or a significant change in exemption, we should use the form. Because I think it saves us a lot of trouble 6 months down the road. If you get under contract on new construction on February 1, and we're gonna go close November 1, and it's not certified yet, they still want, the certified value was from the year before. I'd rather have the discussion early on about how we're gonna prorate. Now, we deal with a lot of builders. I deal with this tax issue every month. We have a very good reputation of understanding taxes, explaining taxes, fighting for taxes, fighting taxes down at HCAT. I mean, we're very educated about how it works. But you've got to use this form, because I can't do much about it if you didn't use the form. If you tell me you've got a closing over here, and we're fighting about the taxes, I can't make the title company do anything. I can't make the seller do anything if I represent the buyer. I can just say, here's, and you can explain common sense. I mean, common sense works most of the time, but it doesn't work with people that are unreasonable. If they're unreasonable, that's why we got in a fight in the first place.
You don't think we should just use it to cover our asses?
I would use it all the time. I would use it. The single family house thing, it's not the most important thing, but I think we should be in the habit of using the form, and I'm going to show you examples why here. Okay?
What is that? That's not redundant with the title?
No, the title company says you can't hold the title company responsible, and here's how we arrive at the number. Don't call me later.
Yeah.
This says, here's what we're going to do based on our experience.
Go sue the seller. That's what.
When you submit an offer,
Oh, okay.
when you submit the offer, submit it with all the others in. So I randomly pulled a few here just to go over. Now, the way you do this, you went to closing and there was some proration based on something. Now remember, I'm involved with 90% of your transactions and like to keep it that way. If you don't want me to, there's not much I can do about it. So this was Jim and Melissa on 19th Street here, okay? Now, I'm fairly involved with the new agents deal. The tax bills come out. You divide the actual taxes by 365. It's a long number there because there's a lot of these deals. So you round up on the third digit. So if it's $16.62.99, we're going to make that 63. So it was $16.63 a day. We happen to close 19th Street on, I calculated these, whatever day it was, and so I've recalculated now, and Jim's client gave Ridgewater $2,063, but he should have given $2378.09. So Jim's client, who sold the house and moved off, owes Melissa's client $314.29. Okay? It's up to Melissa and Ridgewater to decide if they want to go and try and collect this money from Jim's client. To me, anything over 100 or two, it's worth a try. Hell, I can take someone's wife out to dinner for $300 or whatever. Okay? So, you take the actual tax bill, you divide by the number of days, you multiply times the actual day of the closing, you then subtract or add what was the proration to arrive at the real number. It's a very simple formula. My advice to you is every closing that you had in 2013, you go recalculate. It's experience for you. You need to practice anyway. I went ahead and did a few for y'all so that you knew. So, Miss Cynthia, I did your 1216 Arlington for you. So, Cynthia went to closing, and her clients bought 1216 Arlington. The old value was $790. The new value is $832. We closed May 29th, the 149th day. And based on this proration here, Cynthia's client were given $6,400, but they were due $69,1950. So Cynthia's clients are owed $427 from 1216 Arlington. I went ahead and did this one for you. Okay?
And so you're notifying.
I'm
she's
notifying the
notifying-
agent so that she can notify her client, so they can decide what it is they want to do about it.
So
Okay,
the
that's,
buyer and seller.
you're just providing information. Miss Leslie, I did your bird saw for you. Okay? Let me see where I'm at on bird saw. So Leslie sold the house for the sales price was $875. The taxable value went from $641 only to $705. That was the good news about it. But the bad news was, when I recalculate the credit, Leslie's clients are due $408.88 from her closing that was back on April 3rd. It's the 93rd day here. And your clients are owed $408.88.
So they overpay
That-
to the bond.
the credit from the seller was less than it was,
It was
which
short.
is the typical deal.
Yeah.
The typical seller doesn't pay enough.
So when
Now,
they pay the taxes at the end of the year,
when your
January
client
1st,
goes
they're
and
gonna pay too
pays,
much.
they were shorted $408.88 from the seller.
So I'm a little slow
Uh-huh.
catching it on here. So what do I do?
You
So
tell
I
your
say-
client, we recalculated the tax proration now that the bills are out, and it's, the seller signed a notice that he would settle up at the end, at closing, and we need to contact the seller and send him the copy of the bill and the proration, and try and collect our $408.
But
You're just
they-
providing
I give
information.
them the information.
No,
for them to
even if
do.
they didn't sign anything, they signed the proration agreement that says they agree to settle up. Now, it's not enforceable really, but they signed an agreement that said everyone owes what they really owe, and we just used an estimate before anyway, since it wasn't certified. Now, you don't have to worry about any of these prorations for things that are certified, so the closings in late November and December, we don't have to worry about it. They're using the real numbers almost all the time, okay?
And you're not actually having to go collect
send
that,
them
you're
an
just
email.
providing.
Yeah.
You're just providing
like
information.
To your client.
To our client,
Yes.
yes.
But
it's not the agent that collects
Because they
it, it's
probably
the,
don't know
you
what
get
the seller
information.
You're
that
giving
says-
information to your client, and you're helping them to understand what it is that they could do next in order to receive the money. Now, they may owe the money, and they may not want to say a word.
Factor in again how the loss of exemption works. 'cause-
Okay.
So use that in an example. 'cause then you can-
Alrighty, let me see if I have.
And it's
pulled
due
up
by the
several of
31st,
these
so
deals.
whatever it
Let
is,
me
they
just
need to
do,
get the
let me
money.
do a couple more and I'll come back to you.
Yeah, okay.
So here's
Buyers by the
Kenny's
31st
deal,
of
he
January.
closed
They have to pay
12th
the
Street, he closed
By
on
the
September 3rd. So we used an old number, but in fact the value of that house only went from $280 to $299. So I took the $365, I took the tax bill, divided by $365. They closed on the 266th day. I multiplied the 1641 by the 266, which meant that Kenny's client should have given a credit of $4,365. He gave $4,308. Kenny's client owes the other guy $56.74. Okay? I will give this to Kenny. In reality, he should tell that to his client in case his client's contacted by the other agent or the people. But we don't do much about $56.
Right.
Just let that one go.
It's not really good.
It's within the range over there. Yeah.
But if this client owes $260,
I would go after
Yes.
$260
no,
myself.
but your client owes the money.
Yes, if your client owes the money, you're going to tell your client that,
They may-
and they may do nothing.
So
I
and
doubt
remember,
they-
if your client has an escrow account that's paying a mortgage, their mortgage is paying it in December, not January. So they're
That's
already
right.
losing money because they could be coming up short in their escrow account.
Instead of having a cushion, they're gonna have a
Ooh, good point.
deficit.
I'm going to go over that in one more second. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so here's an example. My client bought a townhouse in Rice Military in Shady Acres on 23rd Street or whatever, $294,000. I knew we were going to have a problem with this one. I mean, I can already tell we were going to have a problem, but we're going to fight along the way. But, so, today, I can go online and see that it's one of the few properties that's not certified yet. So there's nothing definite about this number. It can still go up, it could still go down. Someone's still investigating. Now, we closed on April 10th. the builder was adamant about not using, he wanted to use the least possible common number. And we got in a big, huge fight because he was indignant that I thought it was hard to get money from a builder, and I was a little indignant with him back or whatever. His wife was the agent, so it did not make it easy. But it wasn't finished, and I know it wasn't finished, and I knew that they had just started. So what's happened is there was no value before because we're replatting something, and now there's 4 townhouses over there. We sold for $294, but they've assessed us a value of $83,000. I'm going to say that's probably about right. Okay? If he had some foundation up, but not much else going on over there, and we kind of recalculated over there. So if I take the $83,000, I know there'll be no exemption. Okay? There's no one qualified because nobody could live in it January 1, and you multiply by the tax rate, which is still basically $2.53. Then you can go back and say my client's probably going to owe. Well, the seller owed $229 based on those numbers. And I collected $468. So my client might owe back the builder now $239.15. We're not going to know until this is certified if that's right or not. And it may not be certified until next summer. They're not in any hurry over here on these replats. Okay? We're lucky that we've even got this value already. First we got to replat, got to record and get an account number, then we got to get a value, and then it's got to go in a process to get certified. It takes a very long time for HCAD to do that. But here's an example of where probably it's going to be around this $83,000, which is a slab and some wood over there, or about 20% of $295,000. And if it comes back that way, we probably won't protest at all. Just let it go. If they adjust the number to $250, well, the builder ought to go over there and protest because he's the one that's going to pay a lot of taxes also. So, I mean, you just have to decide who's going to go fight the battle over there. Okay? Yes? Yes, ma'am.
Why doesn't the title company automatically guesstimate?
No. They want no liability. The only number they will use on their own is what was certified, and that was from the year before. They will not guesstimate.
Why?
They don't want any liability for arriving at any number. They want the buyer and the seller to arrive at a number and agree amongst themselves. They will not guesstimate.
And Bill, do lenders ever have any input into this?
Okay. Yes, this happens all the time. Okay. So Cynthia's client, when she was gone over the summer, okay, bought a house. I guess we're talking about 2310 Rutland. Was what another one gone? Okay. Yes. The taxes for 2310 Rutland were low over here, and we're going to modify. And I know that they were going to modify. But her lender was requiring that they calculate the taxes based on the sales price. This happens all the time. Now, this is a commercial deal. It's a little more complicated than the generic residential one. But they made Cynthia's client escrow based on the sales price. Well, whatever it was, let's pretend it's just make it easy, $500, and we're paying taxes over here at $300. So I'm having to explain to Cynthia's client, your bank wants you to put $500 a month into an escrow account. And they want $500 a month for the whole year, but the seller's only going to give you credit for what they owe, which is like $1,000 over here. And your bank's requiring you to put in 3 months reserve, so I think we closed in the summer. And then she already was overpaid into the escrow account, and then was going to pay September, October, November, and December, this $500. So when we get to December and they pay the bill, you're going to have $3,000 or $4,000 extra into the escrow account because the taxes were never going to be that high.
But they have to refund the.
They have to refund and adjust yes, but it can be April before they reassess and redo her escrow account and what her real payment is.
Right.
But I made notes in your file to show them that she's going to have an extra $3,000 in her escrow account. Because they required 4 months of reserve, and you pay 4 more months, so we've overpaid the tax bill for 8 months by $300. It gets to be a lot of money at some point. But they would not yield. And she understood it, that it was just a savings account that we're going to have over there. And it works fine. Yes, often you get into that fight with the mortgage company over how much we're going to use for escrow purposes. Okay?
And
And
did
you'll
you
just
not
be
know that-
overpaying.
But that came about from looking at the HUD. Was there
It
any
came
way to know
about
that?
before, it
Oh.
came about, I mean,
When they
way
did the
before we got a
contract.
HUD, because they were telling us that they gave her a good faith estimate.
Okay, all right.
And I could tell what they were gonna want there, and I was trying to lower her monthly payment to a more realistic number, but it was already complicated enough. And the loan officer agreed with us 100% that that really wasn't gonna be the number, but there was no way around it at that particular deal. What happens, so that was odd, that you overpay. Here's the reality of what happens. Title company uses an old number, certified, we go close in April, and you're buying a townhouse and whatever, and they use the land value, and now we're buying a townhouse, and the payment should be $3,000 a month, and 500 of that is an escrow, okay? And you go and close in April. And they use the lower number, and so they only collect $2,600 a month. So we're shy of $400 a month from April through December. So there's 400 times 8, so we're $2,400 shy in the escrow account. So all of a sudden what's going to happen, instead of paying $2,600, we need the $400 that we should have gotten, and we need the $400 to replenish. So your payment's going to go from $2,600 to $3,600 real quick, because they didn't pay enough into the escrow account to begin with. We know it's too shy. You should make your clients pay into the escrow account what they really are going to owe, so that the disparity between the payments is not so great, because it's very painful in year 2 and 3 to have $1,000 or $2,000 payment more than you thought you were going to have. Underpayment in escrow accounts is a huge problem for young first-time buyers buying these typical houses. Either buying the first David Weekly house, the first Perry home, or the first town.
That's why a good agent is important.
Good agent is very important to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Last question.
Yes?
So these sellers moved to Europe,
Yes?
and they were less than joyful through the whole transaction. We're not gonna see this money. Is there an easy way to attempt
Well,
to get it?
I mean, you attempt that there is a forwarding address that the title company had, so we have that, and you copy the agent.
If they can get it, they're gonna say no. Is there, what's the next step?
And you could threaten the law. They
That's
owe the money.
exactly what
They
I was
legally,
saying.
they
That's
owe the
exactly, so if
money.
they choose not to pay it, then what happens?
This will save your ass.
I mean, legally, they owe the money.
Right, but what's the next step? Because you know, I had one where we're fighting at closing, the thing had been renovated, and I'm fighting at closing to have it guesstimated on the new value that's so much higher, because I knew we weren't ever gonna see that money again, and sure enough, here comes the tax bill, my guy's short, and no, they're not gonna give it to us, and what's the next step?
You have to sue them on things for it. Get a lawyer, send a certified letter first.
Now I spent more than what the thing.
I know, but it's the principle of the thing. And if you start your side at $400, how much effort, you're gonna make man effort.
So there's no easy.
There's no easy way, that's why we wanna try and get it right the first time.
But if the title company wants to guesstimate on the properties,
Well, but if we
sell them for free.
We should know up front that they want to find screws on the taxes. We know they're based on last year. We know, let's be clear, everyone's taxes are going to go up at a minimum of 10%. You all know that in 2014. The market was greater than 10%. They can read the MLS, it said 23%. So we know when we go to sell a house in January, and it was $500,000 on the tax records last year, it's going to be at minimum of $550,000. There isn't any way that it's going to be less than that. The value will go up by 10%. So we'll be in the same issue when we go back and close in January, February, and March of 2014. If we use last year's number, the likelihood is that the buyer's going to get screwed out of something. We should use last year's number plus 10%. 10% is the minimum because that's the value going up. The rate could go up too because of the bond business. We have $2 billion worth of bonds we have to pay for over here. So the likelihood is that the rate and the value are going to go up in 2014. Yes?
In your experience, what are you seeing the difference between the HCAD value and what new construction sells for? Like if a new construction sold for $500K, what do you think they would be valuing it at?
You know, if they pick it, it's all over the board. There is no, you know, if
You're
you're
gonna
in
see a
January and February, you got a very good chance that it's probably 75% of something. If you go and close later in the year and they pick up the MLS, it's going to be the actual sales price.
Okay.
But it is, if you sell early in the year something, then the likelihood is that it's going to be significantly less. It's going to be about 75% of the actual value, which is good. Just even like Birdsall, you sell earlier in the year, they can't quite adjust quick enough as they do at the end of the year. Since they're busy, and they're extremely busy in March and April over here, so they don't catch everything. So her clients are indirectly going to benefit in 2014 because the value only went from
Yeah, and they
660
can
to
only pay it,
705,
so-
not 850. So they just saved $2,500 there, in reality. Through nothing that anyone really did. That's just the nature of the
That's the
game. They
calendar.
got screwed out of 400 on one side, but they're probably going to make it back up the next year because the value, if it stays, you know, it's not going to adjust too much more until the next time in 2014.
Bill, what's the percentage to use if my seller's buying, my buyer's buying something, it's homesteaded, they're not gonna be able to homestead because it's a
20%.
separate property, 20%.
20%. It's going to go up at least by 20% because they got a 20% reduction for homestead. So,
But isn't that the fault of the buyer?
for what? We're not getting
That
homestead?
20%?
What do you
Not
mean?
making it a homestead, so.
Well, what if they don't qualify for homestead?
Well, that's what I'm saying, so the seller is penalized?
No, the seller, if they own it January 1, we're going to credit, the next year the value is going to go up.
Okay.
In that year, if you own it January 1 and you have homestead and we're going to sell to an investor in the summer, that investor is going to reap the benefit that it had homestead exemption for that year.
Oh,
Because it's
okay.
still, January 1, it qualified for homestead.
From January, you said through April?
Well,
No,
if
no,
you
no.
own it January 1, you
That's
qualify
just
for
the
homestead. That's the
whole
period
that
you
year,
filed.
that
If
whole
it didn't
12
have
months.
homestead the year before and you
Yeah.
want to go change the exemptions, yes, your period's January 1 to April 30th. We're going to have classes over this again at the first of the year again about, you know, how to fill out the exemptions and what your clients, we have to send them a notice because they have to put their driver's license, they have to put their vehicle registration in that address or whatever. They can't have their vehicle registration tied to their office because they use that as a way to eliminate exemptions. I mean, it's an intentional effort to reduce the amount of exemptions on property, okay? So they're making it more, it's like having to have a picture ID to go and vote. All of a sudden we need that because for whatever reason.
So if you have a builder and they buy a house December 1st,
Yep,
it's homesteaded, maybe it's got a 65 exemption, that's good until December 31st.
that's correct.
On January 1, they need to demolish the house to
They
lower
need to
the
demolish the
taxes.
house on December, before December 31st.
So that next year it's only land value.
That's correct. To save the most amount of taxes, yes. Sure.
And all those exemptions go away.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
the
Bill-
exemptions will all go away. All right, so
Hey, Bill, let me ask a question.
Uh-huh.
What protocol have you used during the year to approach a seller to commit to an adjusted
This form.
price? You know,
Yeah. We use this
that,
one. Yeah.
And
When you submit the offer.
You've had good cooperation?
We just tell them, it's illegal for you to imply that there is homestead exemption in 2013 when you know your mother died in 2012. Are you telling HCAD that she was still alive? Are you willing to sign a subpoena that says she was alive and that qualified? It's illegal, it's fraud, and it is illegal. And if they know it's illegal, then they're less apt to want to
So
fight
you've
about
had
it.
very little resistance?
We've had very little resistance on the homestead exemptions. That's not the problem. The problem is generally with the builders because we fight over the value of the construction. Who's going to go fight the battle when the bill comes in? So the battle is usually with the builder, and the bigger the builder they are, the harder the time we have. Do you think I can get David Weekly to sign this form? I can't get David Weekly to sign this
Yeah,
form.
it's not
I can try my best, but the likelihood is, you know, they'll lecture me about how good they are at tax prorations and paying back, whatever. Okay. I mean, Lovett Homes is not going to sign this form. Frank Lou is not going to sign the form. I know he's not going to sign the form. If you want to play, you can play by his rules.
And then do you ever get it back from them?
The money?
Yeah.
All the time.
They pay.
All the time. All the time. I mean, people say, you'd be surprised. I
They
mean,
know.
it's just, it
It's
was an
honest.
estimate before, and now we're settling up. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, people certainly pay. I think if you can get to them, the ones that are in London are a little harder to get to. People that moved across town, they're used to getting these letters. I mean, it's fairly common. Greenwood King is teaching this same course over here to their agents. They help their clients, Martha Turner, John Darty. They're used to recalculating these deals.
So you get the money just by asking the agent to ask their client.
Well,
Give
the
them
agent doesn't want to take any responsibility either, so they want you to just contact the client. This is between the buyer and the seller.
Send them
That's the
a
first
note.
thing they're
Here's
gonna
a copy
say.
of my
But,
bill.
usually the good agents are gonna be involved because first thing the other side's gonna do is ask their agent, you
Right.
recalculate for me and see what you come up with.
Are there any title companies that take more responsibility than others for this that you've noticed?
No. Yes.
After this meeting, can you send an email with like the promulgated language you
Yes.
generally?
We can.
Yeah, I want to sound.
And so I'm willing to help any of you on your prorations if you need help. I would just kind of do it and come up with what you come up with on your own, but let me help you if you have some difficulty. Yes?
So the buyer on Woodbine
The buyer on Woodbine.
was really buying the house and lot for lot value only.
Okay?
But it's got a nice house that's 1,300 square feet. If he scrapes the ground before the end of the year.
He has a fighting chance of having HCAD adjust his land value but remove the improved value. Sure he does.
Okay.
Especially if you do it at the last part of the year.
Right.
Because what you want is to say nothing, say nothing, and let them arrive at a land value and an improvement value.
Yeah,
Sometime
right.
in, April or May, they're gonna send it to you. And then you go over there and say, look, you've already adjusted for the land, and here you said there was this improvement. Here's my demo permit, here's my photo. There was no improvement there. It should be common sense they would just remove the improved value, the 150,000 or whatever it was.
Won't they just go with the sales price and the
Well, don't give them the
sales
cell. Well, I don't even know if that one was there. They did all that, but if they've assigned the value first, like in this scenario, and it had improvement and deal, and you took off the improvement, then they're required to reduce the improvement.
But won't they just say, show me your HUD, that's the new value?
No, because it was their responsibility to assign a value. Why didn't they make the land then 600,000 and the improvement 650? What did we just sell? They don't know that he bought it for
No,
land
it was on
value. They bought
MLS.
house and land, and they're gonna assign the value first, and if the improvement's not there, no.
But they find, all their values, and none of them are accurate. So I thought when you go in there and buy, either they get it from the MLS, and if it's not MLS, and you say, I just bought it, they say, bring me your HUD, well, that's what it's worth.
But let's pretend I bought a house, same scenario, and it burns the day, the 29th. Are they gonna reduce the value for that guy? You bought a house for 500,000, and the house burns on December 29th.
That's different. If I buy
How's it
something-
different? Yeah, I tore down an improvement or it burned down,
It's
the
gone.
improvement's
It's
gone.
gone.
There's no taxable value to what
Right,
was
so
there.
that scenario works. That scenario works. But if I bought it, and 1 month later I tear down the house, I knew when I bought it I was gonna tear it down, so I was willing to pay that for the dirt. I'm just playing.
No.
Yeah.
No.
But
it
Texas
shouldn't-
is a
that shouldn't
non-disclosure
work.
state, and we don't give them our HUDs.
No,
Yeah.
if they assign a value to the improvement in the land, and you go over there and we're in May, now fighting the value, and you tore it down in December 28th or whatever, and you can start building anything until January 2nd, then no, they'll reduce the value.
And I just did my HVAC things. You no longer have to have your car registration. You just have to have your driver's license to match your address.
Perfect. Yes, ma'am?
You might also want to mention what to tell your clients when they ask you what to do about that letter they get from HCAD after they close.
Yes. Be sure to tell her, ignore, never fill out anything, never tell anyone what you paid. You tell them that you're gonna get something in the mail, and even you're gonna get something at the beginning of January that says they'll file homestead for you for $25. It's
Oh, yeah,
all
well, no,
free.
not that one.
Never give anyone the value of your house. Don't talk to HCAD, don't let them in your property, let them do whatever they're gonna do from outside, don't let them inside.
Although the form looks official, it's junk,
That's
so.
Okay, tax proration, taxes in general, property taxes, tax proration, and our little form here, we got a fair understanding about how that works. Now, these are in our zip forms, our forms are in our library, the Boulevard Realty Library.
Does it show that they're required now when we go through and?
No, it's not exactly.
And you can't make anyone sign
Oh,
this,
okay.
but we just try and sign it. And there's sometimes that it's worth fighting for more than the others. Okay, loss of exemption or new construction, you'd want to know right up front what problem, because we need to alert your client of the potential problem of this couple $1,000s. Yes, ma'am?
Well, right now, with it being a seller's market, if you put that in docs next to your listing, that Boulevard requests the use of these forms, and they're already signed by your client, people, you know, they're wanting to get that offer,
Yeah,
and I haven't had any.
I mean, I just had the
Yeah.
Vice President of
No
Heritage call me on Jan's deal or whatever and say, what's the story with these forms? That we've advised our clients to use these forms. You don't have to submit them if you don't want to, and we'll advise our clients if you don't want to fill them out. That's all we had to say. And they downloaded the forms and sent them right on back. They didn't get the house, but if you just word it just the right way, then if you want this house, we've advised our clients that they should get this signed and
For their protection.
yeah, and if they don't want to sign it, then we just need to tell that information to our clients. And they can evaluate on their own whether or not they want to accept your offer.
That's not why they
Works
did
just
it.
fine. I do just
It
want
seems
to
like
make one
everybody
more
signs
on
this
another
form gets
form,
it.
this force majeure clause. 'cause we all talked about it. The force majeure clause kicks in very well during hurricane season and during the winter, okay? So if you're selling a house and you get under contract today and it wants to close December 28th, that sounds fine. And then all of a sudden they're gonna go get a backup over here for 10,000 more than you. And we go to the 28th and your client's using Bank of America and the law firm is in Dallas and there's a snowstorm in Dallas and it's 80 degrees in Houston and 30 in Dallas and they ain't working in Dallas, then you're not gonna make your closing. It's gonna be delayed through no fault of your client, probably due to an act of God or whatever. So these little forms, when there's severe stress in the world, the last part of the year, hurricane season, then I think this form is good to use all the time. I just think about write the damn thing. It's in the property code really, it's just not in the contracts. It's very common because it's the common legal practice that if through no fault of your own, and if we miss the close date, you're still under contract. I don't want to imply otherwise, but I don't want to get in a fight. It's designed so that if there's a freeze and the title company's not working, then we're not going to be able to close that day, right? And it's just as simple as it can be. And so we'd have less stress if people had this conversation also early on, especially if you're trying, I had one yesterday, we want to close December 23rd. I got one the day before, they want to close December 26th. It's going to be stressful, and so I just want to know, if through no fault of our own, there's a delay, we understand we're going to go close the next available time that the title company reopens. So that's what this form says.
Government shutdown.
Government shutdown? Yeah. No flood insurance?
We're gonna have that again.
In January, we're going to have it again.
You still need to write an amendment if it's within the 5 days that you're gonna close at a later date.
Do you need an amendment? Theoretically, no, but it's a good practice to use.
It'll depend on the date too.
Yeah.
The contract
Yeah.
automatically calls for 7 days.
Okay. Tax proration. I think I covered everything I wanted to there. So recalculate yours, visit with your client. I'm going to give you a little form on, how we arrive at the number and, what they should, the next steps in the event they owe money or are owed money. Okay? All right. Other than that, we're moving on to Thanksgiving here. Do we have food here yet? Yes. I do want to just take a moment. I probably am not good enough about telling you how grateful and thankful that I am that you're in our lives at Boulevard Realty. But I very much have enjoyed this year. It's been a very good year, and I'm grateful for people that have always hung with us through thick and thin, and the new agents that have joined this year into our family. It really is a family type environment, and I try and have your back, and I'm very, very grateful for the blessings that we have, and today is celebrating those sort of blessings. So.
How good a year are we?
We are having a very good year. We exceeded last year's number in October for the year dollar-wise.
Right.
And so through the month of November and December, we're in a race to see if we can get to $200 million or not. So we're somewhere between 190 and 200 million for the year. That's where we'll be.
Let's all go sell something.